Hearts Around the World is the theme for the 2003 Florence Heart Ball. We'll take you behind the scenes coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at BB&T. We're focused on the 2003 Florence Heart Ball, and we're visiting with Scott Rowe, the Director of Clinical Services for Health South. Good morning, Scott. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being one of the sponsors of this year's Florence Heart Ball. Incredible commitment to think about all the American Heart Association does, not only in the PD, but on the Strand, throughout southeastern North Carolina, and throughout the U.S.
Right.
So thank you. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Are you originally from the area?
No, I'm originally from East Tennessee, from a little town called New Tazewell. It's about 45 minutes outside of Knoxville. But I've been here in Florence for about 6.5 years now, so more and more it's becoming my home. So.
What exactly is a Director of Clinical Services?
I am responsible in our hospital for managing the therapy departments in both inpatient and outpatient, which includes about 30 to 35 therapists, as well as a few other areas in the hospital, van services, our leisure activities department, as well as our Work Start program.
You said 30 to 35 therapists?
Yes.
It's a huge commitment, Scott.
Well, that's the main reason most of our patients are there in our hospital, is to receive therapy. So it does require a large staff of therapists to provide that service.
Where did you study to become a Director of Clinical Services?
I got my BS in physical therapy from the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. That was after doing undergraduate work at UT in Knoxville. I also just completed an MBA degree at Francis Marion. It's their dual program from Francis Marion and MUSC that included a health management certificate. So.
What do you think brought you to Florence?
To be honest with you, the Grand Strand attracted me here. My family always vacationed in the Myrtle Beach area growing up, so it was always kind of a dream of mine when I got out of school to give it a try and see what opportunities were in this area. And the opportunity did become available for my wife and myself to find jobs in Florence. So we gave it a try right out of school, and we've been here ever since.
That's great. You mentioned your wife. You have family here in the area.
Yes. Along with my wife, I have 2 children. Caleb is 3 years old, and Emily Grace is 3.5 months old.
Is that right?
Yes.
What's that like, having a 3.5-month-old daughter?
Very exciting. Definitely an adjustment adding a second child to the family, but it's very rewarding.
And you all are able to spend a good bit of time together.
Yes, especially since finishing up with school now and everything. We're really having a lot of time to spend together. It's very nice.
Yeah, and having 2 children, and that you said Caleb is 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Emily Grace is 3.5 months.
Right.
That's exciting.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's a big commitment. Why do you think you chose physical therapy as your field, Scott?
It was a field really that I kind of stumbled across, to be honest. I always had plans of going to school and becoming a vet. And like many people, when I got into college, started looking at other areas and began to volunteer at UT Medical Center in the physical therapy department, and then later became employed as an aide there, and really didn't look back after that. It was just a very appealing profession to me, to have an opportunity to interact with other people, to make a difference, to help other people, but also really to me just the amazing human body and how it works, and getting to study that and see how it heals itself and things along that lines. Yeah,
seeing the human body work and seeing your wife go through the pregnancy of having 2 children together, watching that. Is your wife a physical therapist as well?
She is. That is where we met, was in physical therapy school.
Is that right? Had you worked, I know you said you did a lot of volunteering when you were in school. Had you worked anywhere prior to coming to Health South?
I actually started, when we moved to Florence, I worked at McLeod Regional Medical Center, and I was there for a year, and my wife actually started at Health South when we moved here. I worked in acute care and outpatient in McLeod before coming to Health South and joining Michelle there in November of 1997.
So you all are both working in Health South?
Yes.
There's no anti-nepotism or anti-anything?
Not really. We did it full-time for about 2 years, but for the past couple of years she's been working part-time to now she's just working a few days here and there, and her full-time definitely is a full-time job is raising our kids at home.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is Health South local, or is it all over the place?
It's actually an international company. We're a provider of inpatient rehab and inpatient services for inpatient and outpatient, as well as surgery and diagnostic centers. We've got about 1,800 facilities located in all 50 states, as well as some countries abroad, Australia, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom, some of those areas. On a more local basis, in South Carolina, we actually have 5 facilities, including Columbia, Charleston, Rock Hill, and Anderson, which is our newest facility. And like you mentioned, there are some outpatient clinics as well in this area, with us having one in Conway and Surfside Beach.
Mm-hmm. Scott, why would a patient come to Health South?
A patient would come to Health South if they've been referred by their physician after a stay in the hospital, or if the physician's referred them from home. They would benefit from inpatient rehab services if they have a decrease in their functional status, if they're having trouble getting around, if they're having trouble with their activities of daily living, like bathing, dressing, grooming, any of those things, as well as problems with communication, swallowing, any of the number of areas in that. In coming to Health South, we can provide the continuum of care and the different approaches from all the different areas: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, dietary, case management, nursing. All those areas work together to treat the patient as a whole and get them back to the point that they want. We have a vision with Health South of getting patient back to work, to play, and to living, and that's definitely what we try to do with each patient when they come in our doors.
Mm-hmm. Scott, how many patients are currently in your care?
We are an 88-bed inpatient rehab facility, and typically we are running about 80 beds full at a time.
Mm-hmm. And I think you said there are 1,800 locations within the U.S.?
Yes.
Are all of those under the name Health South?
It varies from city to city. For the most part, those are Health South facilities, and the name is there. We do have some joint ventures where we share hospitals with other established acute care hospitals in those towns. But for the most part, the Health South name is prominently displayed. So.
I know you said earlier your responsibilities as director for clinical services. Can you go back over that? Some of on a day-to-day basis, the therapists you've seen the therapists as well as many patients, I'm sure, but talk real quick about your responsibilities.
Just in day-to-day operations, just looking to make sure that the patients are satisfied with their stay, that things are running smoothly, and there's no issues with the therapy that we're providing. Making sure that the therapists have all the resources that they need to provide the care that they need to the patients. And then just working with the other departments and making sure that we're providing the communication that we need to make things run smoothly for patients.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk real quick about how the American Heart Association has benefited your treatment of patients?
They've provided numerous resources for us. Probably most notably, the American Heart Association sponsors a lot of research that we definitely benefit from, developing the latest technology, but also determining the most effective treatment for patients who suffer from cardiac disease as well as from stroke. They provide us with valuable educational materials, resources for the community as well as for our patients. They also serve as an advocate for our patients and their family members.
That's great. Scott, how does the American Stroke Association relate to the American Heart Association?
The Stroke Association is actually a division of the American Heart Association. I believe pretty much because of the prevalence and just the seriousness of the condition of stroke, the Heart Association has decided to devote an entire division only to stroke.
Mm. Can you tell the viewers real quick what exactly is a stroke?
A stroke has sometimes been referred to as a brain attack. And basically what it is when an area of the brain does not receive the oxygen or the blood that it needs. This can usually be caused by two different things, either a clot in the blood vessel in the brain or a hemorrhage of a blood vessel in the brain. With either one, the end result is damage to the brain and as a result, a number of different signs and symptoms. Those signs and symptoms are unique to each person depending on where the damage in the brain occurs. And they can range from anything from slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, difficulty problem solving, to things like walking and balance and ability to move extremities.
Mm. Scott, is there a normal length of time that I guess it depends on the severity of a stroke, but normal length of time that a patient would be in y'all's care at Health South?
The typical length of stay for patients who have received a stroke is about 3 weeks. They would typically stay with us, and that does vary depending on the severity of the stroke. But on average, 3 weeks is about our length of stay for a stroke.
Can you tell us how cardiac disease and strokes in particular have impacted the PD community?
Well, as a nation as a whole, a stroke is a very serious condition. I was looking at some statistics just yesterday that relate that somebody suffers a stroke every 53 seconds in this country, and somebody actually dies from a stroke every 3.3 minutes. Stroke was the third leading cause of death in 1998, with over 150,000 people dying from stroke. Stroke is also, and this is where it really affects, where we can have an effect, stroke is one of the leading causes of disability in our country, long-term disability. There are 4.5 million people right now in the United States living as survivors of stroke, and those are the people that we're taking care of and we're helping to try to recover their function. More specifically in our area here in the PD, this area of the state is one of the areas of highest incidence of stroke, not only in the country but in the world. And we have the unfortunate title as the belt buckle of the stroke belt, which is one of the area in the southeastern United States with a high area of incidence of stroke. Another statistic that is particularly important with this area that I found, given our demographics, is that with stroke, the death rate, with comparing white males to African American males, is almost double for that in African American males. So that is definitely something that would warrant more research and definitely needs more attention.
Why do you think strokes are such a problem here in the PD or within our region?
There are the obvious things with lifestyle, diet, things along that nature, but there have been numerous studies to try to develop a correlation. Things have been proposed, everything from something in the drinking water to the latest research that I've seen had tried to correlate even all the way back to low birth weight having an effect on cardiovascular health later in life and even possibly leading to stroke. I don't think any one definite thing has been determined, but definitely there are those lifestyle things that can be controlled and that people should be aware of.
And if there were lifestyle things, if you were talking to a class of fourth graders, let's say, and there were lifestyle things or changes that you would encourage those fourth graders to do to try to prevent a stroke later in life, what would the top three things be, you'd say? Number one and
fourth and foremost would be don't smoke. Smoking is one of the highest, most controllable risk factors with developing a stroke. The other two would be having a healthy lifestyle with regular exercise and then a healthy diet with low cholesterol.
How important are rehab services to survivors?
Once a patient has gotten by the an initial acute care stage, are medically stable, inpatient rehab is the next step. It is their first major step in recovering from stroke physically and mentally, and the services that we provide can give them that physical, occupational, and speech therapy that can enable them to recover the function that they need to go back home. Studies have shown that almost 60% of stroke patients can benefit from aggressive inpatient rehab.
Is that right? What percentage do you think of patients would come to you from a stroke, from having a stroke, and then later return after that rehab?
For our particular facility for 2001, this being because we don't have the 2002 statistics to compare yet, but we were above the national average for returning patients to the community, with about 80% of our patients going back home or to a similar setting in the community.
That's fantastic. Yes. Say that again? 80%?
Almost 80%, yes.
That's an incredible number. Congratulations. I mean, that's wonderful commitment to the community and getting folks back to their families.
Right, right. And we do really, that is our major focus when patients come to us, is to get them to the point that they can return home with their families.
Scott, is Health South involved in any community awareness programs to try to encourage folks to help prevent strokes in the future?
We have been in the past and continue to be involved with that. One of the major campaigns that we did was a partnership with the American Stroke Association, in which we did a nationwide ad campaign. It was in print and also in some other different areas, just to educate the public on the warning signs of stroke, the ways to prevent stroke, as well as the benefits of inpatient rehab after a patient has suffered a stroke. On a local basis, we've done a number of different things to try to prepare the community and educate them. We have a stroke support group that meets at our facility once a month on the second Tuesday of the month from 2 until 3:30. That's been done in conjunction with the American Stroke Association. And each month they prepare a different topic that's pertinent to stroke survivors as well as their family members. Also of interest is this year we are in the process of planning a stroke symposium for the community, which will include clinicians and physicians from the area and from the state that will provide the community just with information on the latest technology, treatment ideas, and things along that line in regards to stroke.
We're visiting with Scott Rowe, the Director of Clinical Services for Health South, one of the sponsors of this year's 2003 Florence Heart Ball. Scott, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
You're welcome.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're at BB&T. We're focused on the 2003 Florence Heart Ball, and we're visiting with Joe Baldwin, the CEO of Regency Hospital of Florence. Good morning, Joe. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
And thanks for being one of the sponsors of this year's Heart Ball.
Yes, we sponsored it last year, and it's a very strong commitment we have to the Heart Ball.
Incredible commitment servicing the Heart Association, supporting the Heart Association, helping to fight heart disease and strokes, not only here, but throughout America. The opportunity to provide funds for research that's happening here in the state and helping to possibly find a cure and possibly find something to fight this incredible ailment, particularly here in the PD.
Oh, yes, very high incidence of cardiovascular disease here in Florence, so it's a great charity and a great cause.
Absolutely. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Are you originally from the area?
I'm originally from North Alabama. I've spent most of my healthcare career in Houston, Texas, but I've been here the last 2 years.
Last 2 years. And do you have family here in the area?
My wife and I are here in Florence.
That's great. How about Regency Hospital? Can we? It has been here how long?
2 years. We opened it in July of 2001. We're a new company, and this is one of our first hospitals.
And before coming to Florence, you said you were in Houston?
In Houston, about 15 years. That's most of my career.
Had you been in hospital administration in Houston?
Been in healthcare 22 years.
Is that right?
Been a CEO the last 10 years, and prior to that I was a CFO.
Son of a gun. How did your career in the medical industry begin?
Well, originally, after I graduated from college back in the late 70s, one of my first jobs was a consultant, and I did consulting work on financial systems and information systems, and one of my first clients was a hospital, and I finished that project up, and I was fortunate enough to get a job offer as their CFO. So I started there, and it's been 22 years.
That's amazing. And can we talk real quick about the medical facilities that have been under your direction? In Houston, that was
some acute care hospitals. I was CEO of a large acute care North Houston Medical Center. I also was CFO in the psychiatric industry there for probably 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. In Regency Hospital of Florence, where is that located?
That's located in the Cedar Towers structure of the Carolinas Hospital System, which is here in Florence.
Okay. Yeah, for viewers on the Strand or in southeastern North Carolina or throughout the PD who may not know Florence well, it's pretty easy to find.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Very easy. It's right off Dargan Street and Cedar Street.
And your responsibilities primarily as CEO, what does that entail when we think about, so many viewers wonder about what a chief executive officer really is or what the tenure track is to getting there. What would your responsibilities be in that position?
Well, I'm responsible for the oversight of the hospital. I'm really responsible for seeing that we have sufficient staff, qualified staff, and see that the hospital meets federal and state standards for health care.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned acute care facility. What would be the difference between a long-term or an acute care facility and a general hospital?
Well, I guess the best thing would be to say how we're alike. We're alike in that we both have to meet the same federal and state standards for acute care hospitals. Mm-hmm. We are both licensed the same way. Mm-hmm. The big difference is that acute care hospitals have a full range of services, which would include surgery, OB, and ER. We wouldn't have that. We would be focused on a much smaller population of patients. Plus, we have to have an average length of stay of 25 for our patients, where acute care do not have to meet that criteria.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. How would how does the hospital-physician relationship differ?
In acute care hospitals, you have a whole pool of family practitioners and internal medicine physicians that will admit patients for a diagnostic type condition. In our hospitals, they're already diagnosed when they're referred to us, so the physicians follow and tend with that continued stay, but there's not any diagnostic, so we deal with a different group of physicians.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about those physicians, when did the use of long-term acute care facilities begin, and what prompted that?
It started actually in the early 80s when they first did the PPS payment system for the acute care hospitals. They realized that there was going to be a group of patients whose stays were going to be much longer that wouldn't fit into that category. So they set up specific regulations to allow us to treat patients whose length of stay is greater than 25. Mm-hmm. So we're in a specific group, specific population.
Joe, are facilities separate from those of a general hospital, or can they be within the same location?
They really could be structured both ways. They could be within a hospital, maybe 2 or 3 floors within an acute care hospital, or they could be in a freestanding facility.
Mm-hmm. What's the most common treatment provided to patients at Regency?
30% of our patients are ventilator or pulmonary patients. About 30% are wound care type patients, and they also could have pulmonary problems. Mm-hmm. The other 30% are roughly medically complex, could have cardiac, could be diabetic patients.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the average stay for patients?
They would average 25 overall. Some could be there 2 weeks, 14 days. Some could be there maybe 40 days. But overall, our average must be 25 or greater.
25 days or greater?
Yes.
Mm. And how about what kind of medical specialists are on your staff?
We have a full range of physicians on our staff, which would include cardiologists, internal medicine, pulmonologists, nephrologists, so the entire range of specialists are on staff.
Mm-hmm. In your experience in this industry, what involvement have you had with the Heart Association over the years? Obviously, this many years in the industry, you've had a good feel of being involved with not only the Heart Association, but other great medical charities. How long have you been involved with the Heart Association?
Probably 20 years. My whole career in every facility, we've been involved one way or the other, where it would be a heart run or a heart walk or a heart gala or the heart ball like they're doing in Florence. So in some form, we've supported it throughout my career.
Has the American Heart Association impacted your treatment or Regency's treatment of its care of patients in the facility?
Oh, sure. They spend about 25% of their funds on education and about 25% on research. So anytime that word is getting out to patients, they're getting treatment sooner. And, of course, that helps us with our outcomes.
Mm. Why do you think, in particular, the local community should support the efforts of the local American Heart Association?
Well, about 45% of the deaths in Florence County are going to be related to cardiovascular disease. So that's 1 out of every 2. So probably 1 out of every 2 members of every family is going to have some heart disease issues. So if they're supporting the Heart Association, they're really supporting the treatment of their family members and their community. So it's a great cause.
Mm-hmm. When I know viewers are really interested, as we talked about, in CEOs, when we think about the tenure track of CEOs, how do most folks go about becoming? What is it that's in you, Joe, to get you out there to become a chief executive officer?
Well, I think you have to love working with people and staff, and I think you have to have that kind of caring type philosophy and belief. And if you have that, and you go to graduate school and start out somewhere on the ground floor, it's a great career and it's a great position, and I really encourage young people to get involved in it.
If you weren't currently the CEO of Regency Hospital of Florence, what do you think you'd be doing?
I hope I'd be a photographer. I'm an amateur photographer, and I really spent a lot of time in that. So that's been something I've done since high school. So I spend quite a bit of time in that, so I'd probably be doing that.
That's amazing. Man committed both to healthcare as well as to photography, supporting the American Heart Association and supporting this community writ large. Joe Baldwin, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank all the sponsors and volunteers for making the 2003 Florence Heart Ball and today's Carolina People such a great success. If you haven't yet bought tickets, contact the American Heart Association at 843-665-0985.